Good morning, Bananamators! I did all this drawing and found out that my microphone was unplugged. Today, we're going to be doing some line art, and as you can see, I've already gotten this far. Told you, things are so planned now. We are on top of things with our professionalism. So, today, I wanted to take those things we learned in our little lecture and apply them to the rough drawing that I did in the previous video. Look at this battle. This is a lumpy, ew. And obviously, there's a whole bunch of drawings here. Last time we left off somewhere around here, right? If you were following along and you did a little study like this where you set everything up the way that I have here, fantastic. And if you didn't, you can create another one so you can practice doing line art on it. Now, if you're just studying line art, like if you're like, today is line art day, you can trace this. You don't need to do observational studies to do line art studies. If you need to work on your observational studies, it makes sense to do that first. Like put up your grid or whatever way you're deciding to like play along with this and to do the study. If that's helpful to you, you should be doing it. Even if you hate it, even if you're like, I would rather barf, if you need to do it to get better, you gotta force yourself to do the unhappy things to get better. Like the things that you don't enjoy. And it's like, well, Tracy, I've had people who are like, Tracy, it's not fair. Not everybody can do it. Like if you want to be professional, you have to do the things you don't like doing. That's just how it is. It's not a moral judgment whether you can or cannot force yourself to do things you do not like. It is a requirement for the profession. Sometimes they give me stuff I don't want to do and I can't be, I don't like doing that one. That's not how jobs work. If you're a hobbyist, do whatever you want. Have whatever kind of fun, trace everything, and then just paint over it. I don't care. And anybody who's like, that's cheating. Like the guys back, they used to use the, what are they called? The camera lucida back in the day. They used to like, people have been cheating for a long time. It doesn't matter. There's no rules. The art police aren't going to come in. The only time it matters is plagiarism. Don't steal stuff. That's the only rules. So if you want to trace this little IKEA vase so that you can practice your line art for a study, that's not hurting anybody. Nobody's losing out. Even IKEA's not hurting out. Because if you like, oh, like that vase, it's like, oh, it's an IKEA vase. It's like advertising for them. They're not broke up because you did a line art study of their vase. Now, the photographer, or IKEA probably owns the composition and stuff for this particular photograph. So it would be a little bit unethical to create prints of an IKEA setup. And I mean, why would you? You can come up with something better than that, but you can take photographs of still lifes and paint that. That's all within your purview. You own all that stuff. It's fine. You can even buy stock art that says you have commercial rights to create other things, and you can just trace that. And you can do line art over the tracing. I don't care. Why do people get upset about this stuff? Anyway, we're having a tangent sort of day. Let's just do some stuff now. So I want to talk a little bit about lines. First of all, you want to just play with lines. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. You can do like the trying to get to the little dots. So you draw yourself a bunch of little dots like this. And you have to try and get to the next dot using your line. That's pretty good at giving you like longer lengths of things. Getting things straight lines are harder than curved lines, so doing this is good. Start with going thin to thick to thin, and then thick and thin and thick again, thin and thick again. These are all really good for getting you that hand practice. Now, I want you to play and not punish yourself by doing this, because doing repetitive things like this, if you're gripping your pencil with all of your strength, is going to give you hand problems. You're going to get tendonitis, you're going to get carpal tunnel, all sorts of stuff. So just have a little play. And if your line art is dicey, 5 minutes a day, start your day with just, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of lines that are similar. I'm going to do some C's, and I'm going to do a counter C. Try and get it the same size, shape, and everything. That's harder. S, and then S. This. And try and keep your arm loose while you're doing this and relax and just think of it like a game. You can do circles and concentric circles. I remember when we were in college, we were asked to do stuff like this. We were asked to do concentric circles, and everybody was like, this is a waste of time. We should be learning. We should be doing something that's substantial and difficult. And if it's not hard, it has no value. And that isn't true. This actually has tremendous amounts of value. Just understanding how your arm works, loosening your arm up, just like practice, like just having a little bit of flow and getting comfortable, moving your arm around and stuff like that, warming up is totally good. Being able to control the weight of your line. Like if you're doing, I'm just using the hard round pressure size. So if this is just a hard round brush with pressure sensitivity on it, you don't need anything fancy to practice this. If in real life you could use like a soft HB, some brands are softer than others, or a 2B pencil, or even softer than that, being able to press really lightly and draw really light, gentle lines, and being able to draw harder, more dominant lines is going to help you tremendously in your quality and speed when you're working on a production or even on your own stuff. Now, I like to keep my smoothing at 0 when I am practicing. When I am doing work, I'll move it up because I can zoom in here. Like my line art, I actually used to have super tight line art because of my in-betweening teacher, but I had some nerve damage in my hands. So my line is a bit shakier now. And this is a quality I feel comfortable with for just a personal piece, just practicing my line art, not a problem. But if I'm doing this for the studio, I'm going to bump up my smoothing to a point where I can get rid of that little jitter because they need it clean. But when I'm practicing, it doesn't make sense to get rid of the jitter because I need to know what my line quality is and how my hand works so that I can work to the best of my ability. And I like to have the smoothing on as low as possible to have the most control, because especially if you're, cleaning up a character, if you have an eyeball like this and we have this line go past or something like this, or they take this little corner here and they turn it into a round, that is going to affect the model of the character. It doesn't look right anymore when a point becomes a curve. So having your smoothing as low as you can get away with is actually very helpful. So in this, spent so much time. I went through my list and I was like, okay, I want to do some contour lines. So when I'm thinking about contour lines, what are some of the things that we thought about? Having thicker exterior contour lines. So this line out here is thicker. Bulk it up even more. And get that corner really tight and pointy. This little detail stuff is something that's very important if you want to stand out. Just go over it because it wraps around like this. So this actually would come in a little bit like that. Boop. The interior contour lines are thinner. So over here, this one's thinner, this one's thicker. We've got some little cross contours here to be used as tone. So I did some little cross hatching up here with some little flowers. I used some hatching. And down here, I used squiggles. So if you're doing texture as tone or line as tone, you can actually just draw a little squiggly stuff. And there's this really interesting, I think it's a TED Talk called Embrace the Shake, where this guy developed a hand tremor that was making it impossible for him to do the type of artwork that he'd been making previously. And then at some point, I think his doctor said like, well, why don't you just embrace the shake and, just do shaky stuff. And he started doing these really beautiful portraits using just these like squiggly shapy lines and kind of carving things out using tone. Really interesting. Oh, there's all sorts of different ways to make art. And we're just using like, there's more over here, densely built on top of each other. So it's getting darker. And then over here where things are sparse and I'm just lifting my hand up and pressing very gently, we're getting a lighter thing. So you can get these gradations in tone just by drawing squiggly lines. And having this little background is a place where you can plop those things down on is a handy tool. You have line weight, so we already talked about that one. Organic versus geometric. So here we've got like some harder edge lines. And as I said, if I was doing this for a job, I would make sure that I used stabilizer and made sure this line was as crisp as it needed to be for the production. Some shows actually do use a bit of a like hand-drawn sketchy line in their backgrounds. They might use texture brushes or something like that. That's fine. The important thing is that you're using whatever you need to get it done in the speed that you're required to do it. Let's look up here. So here I'm using lines to just represent the stems. We've got one big sticky uppy here, and you can see the line here is very, very thin, like it's blending into the background. So we're going to try and emulate that. We're going to use a very thin line, bring it all the way down like this. It's actually disappeared in the middle, so that's not good. Then use our texture, this to create that little shapey shape. And because we're pressing very lightly, it's pushing it back into space. It's giving us some depth. So we can create some more of these little doobly-doos. Not super concerned about what is actually in the picture because this is just a drawing exercise. I just want to play with these little doobly-doos. And I'm just going to practice pressing very, very lightly and getting these ones in the background to fade in. Here I'm going to use a little bit of texture of a little squiggle and just draw a little loopty squiggly line to get some of this grassy sort of stuff in here. And my temptation has always been to draw it correctly, to like go in and draw every little grain and every little detail, but that's totally unnecessary. And it takes a tremendous amount of time and you don't actually gain a lot. You want to use those details where they're most essential. And in here, if you're just trying to get some of this like shape and texture, just drawing these little lines. So you have a line, let's say you do your rough line like this, then you go in and you just draw some little squigglies. Boop, 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 boop. If you're feeling a little bit more precise, you can do sort of heart-shaped squigglies so that it feels like the grain is standing towards the end of it. But you could also just have something a little bit more abstract, let's say. So, little square pointy bits. This, if you've got it next to, like a round flower, you have little roundy flowers like this, and you've got something coming out like this. If you give it little sharpie points, then you're creating a little bit of contrast between sharp and round. So play. When I say play with your line, this is what I mean. Have a little arc, and then what can we do? Little figure eights or something like this. Beep, 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 beep. Now we got like a little loop in or something, right? Playing with different textures and tones and stuff like that is just a beautiful way to have more control over what you're doing. So whether you're drawing flowers or you're drawing cars or you can draw robots, you're drawing octopus or something like that, you have, your tentacles coming up like this, and you can say, okay, maybe I want this to be, got the front here. We'll call that a rough, knock it down, and we'll come back and okay. The outside, I actually want it to be a little bit textury, so I'm going to do a cleanup line that's really rough. And then the inside, I want it to be smooth. We're going to have all our little boop, 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 boop. And then we can play with our little roundy, like what are we doing? Like little scaly stuff, little bumpity bumps. Say, we're doing a little car. Boop, boop, boop. This is a really skinny car. This, being able to draw whip straight lines like this is giving us direction. Yeah, so because all of our lines are ha, you got that gesture, right? The ah, then that's giving us the direction of our car. It looks like, and actually we can do the wheels this way. So because we've got these straights going very, very straight, it's giving our car directionality. So we've got our loopity woof. That's giving us some direction. This is giving us another sort of a feeling, like this is coming up and like, and this is like, ha. Hopefully that makes sense. So this didn't go quite as I expected. I don't know if it was education at all. Basically, look at this list and think about different ways you can play with different things. Like, so contour lines, let's draw round things. We've got our vase here. Let's just draw around the vase like this. These are called cross contours, and it's just like drawing a wireframe on your vase. You can draw some cross contours here on the table and draw a little grid. We might actually want to work out our perspective grid if we're going to draw texture on the table. That would be helpful. But just going around and drawing all these little contour lines around all our little forms. Beep, beep, beep. Excellent form of practice. It will teach you many things. We got your line as texture, that kind of stuff down there, or little bumpity bumps, or our little friends up here. These guys are all lines as texture, and line as tone. So getting some tone out of this. Gesture line, so like swoopity swoop versus ha. We've got our organic versus our geometric, so we're playing with that, we're playing with line weight. So it's just having a little adventure, exploring the different ways that you can play around with line, and having this underdrawing is just a way to help you take that off your plate. You want to know exactly what you're drawing, where everything is going, have your rough be as clean as you need to really do a nice line drawing over the top. And then you can focus on playing with your line. And I keep saying it, playing. You're not working. Work is work. When I go into the studio and I have to draw backgrounds, that is work. It has to be done correctly. It has to be done on time. It has to be done with the right line weight. It has to be done well. When I am drawing something at home, it can be drawn bad. It could come out ugly. All the lines can be jacked up. The perspective can be bad. Nobody is standing over me and going to be yelling at me for this. And I felt like there was for a long time. I was like, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't do a good job. But when you're just practicing at home, it is play. And you have rules to the game that you're playing. Like here, I was only allowed to use line art. I'm not allowed to like bulk up this brush and like switch to big swaths of tone. Not allowed to use color. I have to draw the thing that's on the... I didn't even stick to that. I was going to say I was going to have to draw the thing that I was doing, but I drew some octopus stuff and a car. So that we didn't hold up there. Long story short, just have fun. Have fun exploring all the different ways that you can utilize lines, and you'll get better at drawing lines. That's it. Just do it a lot, and you'll get better at it. Thanks for dropping by. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do. And I'll see you in the next video, which hopefully I use sound I record. So, welcome to Stylish Rebel. Did I say that part? I did all this. Hooray! So today we're going to be working with lines. So, press the button. I'm an expert at this. Yeah.